Hello everyone, back with Patty Reed Stahl, Chapter 16, The Truckee. All day and all night we moved on, and as daybreak revealed a clear, pure river ahead, a hoarse shout rose from parched throats. "It's the Truckee River, folks," said Uncle George Donner. "There'll be no more deserts to cross, and we can count on sweet water and fresh air for the rest of the way." "Let's hope there'll be food, too," said Mr. Eddy, as he cleaned his gun and set out to hunt fresh meat. The wild geese he brought in were the first good food the folks had eaten for days. Then, unexpectedly, help came. Mr. McCutcheon and Mr. Stanton, who had gone ahead to Sutter's Fort, returned with provisions, 7 pack mules and 2 Indian vaqueros who herded cattle for Captain Sutter. Louis and Salvador were their names, but they could only speak Spanish. The best thing that Mr. McCutcheon and Mr. Stanton brought to the Reed family, however, was the happy news that they had seen Mr. Reed and he had made it to the fort. He and Mr. Heron were so worn with fatigue and starvation that we didn't recognize them at first, Mr. Stanton told them. For days they had nothing to eat but wild onions and 5 beans dropped from some immigrant wagon ahead. They stumbled into Hastings Camp while we were there. By this time, they were safe and sound at Sutter's Fort. "Thank heaven!" Patty's mother exclaimed. "Mama, it's the first time you have smiled since Papa left," Patty told her happily. Mr. Stanton traveled with us from then on, and we no longer had to walk. One of Captain Sutter's mules carried our clothing and blankets, while Mrs. Reed and Tommy rode on another. Puss was mounted behind Mr. Stanton, and Jimmy and Patty behind Louis and Salvador, the Indians. "Wouldn't Grandma be surprised to see us riding with Indians?" Patty said to Puss. "Mr. Stanton says they are Christians," Puss answered, "so they've got over their scalping ways." Hidden inside Patty's blouse, as I was, I could only see the Indian's hard back as Patty clung to him. I wished very much that I could see him. I wondered if he wore paint and feathers like the Sioux, or whether he looked like the dirty, hungry Indians we saw back on the plains. For several days we traveled through the valley of the Truckee River. There was plenty of sparkling cool water and grass for the animals, and Mr. Stanton advised the folks to travel slowly and give the oxen a chance to gain strength for the hard pull across the Sierra Nevada. Patty whispered to me, "We can see the mountains in the distance, Dolly. When we cross them, we'll be in California." It rained a little, and the chill October air penetrated even to me. "When it rains down here, it snows in the mountains," Uncle George Donner said. "It seemed to me we ought to hurry along without delay." "Your oxen will never make it if you don't rest them, sir," Mr. Stanton said. "At Sutter's Fort, the folks say the pass is never closed until the middle of November. Mr. Hastings got through last year in December." "Well, you know best, I reckon," Uncle George answered. We rested in the Truckee meadows for 5 days, and then pushed slowly on, crossing a low range of mountains. In a steep downward grade, an axle broke on the Donner's wagon, and little Georgia and Eliza were tumbled out among the household goods. They seemed to be none the worse for the accident, but it gave the folks quite a bad scare. And Uncle George cut his hand as he and Uncle Jacob repaired the broken axle. The rest of the party moved on ahead. And that is the end of Chapter 16. Check back the next time with Chapter 17, the Sierra Nevada. See you then. Bye.